we have done studies of students all the way from kindergarten to third grade. And if you follow those students forward from the time they have interventions until the time they're in third grade, you do see that we might start out at 20% of the students on track to be proficient in third grade and finish with over 50% of the students on track. And it depends on the district what your counts are. There are some districts that have much higher than 50%. Other districts like Minneapolis, where we were starting so far below, and many of the students were like in the 10th or the 5th percentile, you know, at the end in third grade you have a lower percentage. But that's an excellent question. That's why we do longitudinal studies where we follow the same kids across time. The state reports kids third grade versus last year's third graders, and that may confound, you know, things like poverty. If you have more kids in poverty or students not speaking English as a first language, your percentage of kids proficient could actually go down. But if you look at them longitudinally, they could be making good growth. So all of our evaluations are based on this longitudinal approach.
Well, I'll just add that this is a question that we're actively working on right now. We've historically worked on year-over-year outcomes, but we're partnering with MDE to do continuous enrollment impact to see what is the impact at the school level. And we have started to look at this in more depth, I think, along the lines of what Dave's been able to do from the district perspective and what you're asking about. And we know that there is a prevention effect. So if you can get students reading core earlier on and then be able to track their likelihood or percent meeting proficiency in third grade, that the earlier we are able to work with them and get success, usually the better. Currently and historically, Math Corps is officially operated in grades 4 through 8. We are revamping that. There's some logistical, I mean, just kind of practical reasons why we went there, such as wanting to respect schools' space for having multiple things going on at the same grade, so we just picked up in grade 4. But also, from an educational standpoint, algebra readiness by grade 8. So there was an educational reason for that. Where we've been able to make more kind of ready changes to address early numeracy, our pre-K program now, instead of calling it a literacy-rich schedule, where I was talking about how the tutors support literacy the full day, it's actually now officially called the literacy and math-rich schedule. So this is acknowledging that at a pre-K level, from an educational standpoint, it's all learning, and the math component can be a part of what would be actually the language element of reading core. So that's a really intentional inclusion of numeracy.
Representative Dabney, that's an area of my great interest as well. And so we're going to be doing our kindergarten beat the odds study, not only for literacy, but for numeracy. And we may find different teachers have a strength in numeracy, and we'd be able to try to capture that. So it is on the radar, and we need to really find effective strategies, but because by third grade, the numeracy gap is as big as the literacy gap is.
The Mounds View program has been running for a full year, and it's in its second year starting in September in our locations here. And we've started the Robbinsdale program, or the Brooklyn Parks program, in October of this year. We have been running the ELR program for 3 years. This is our third year at different programs. We were also at one point at Raspberry Ridge in Hopkins, but had some lease issues there with the place, so we've moved.
Yeah, so last year we had 26 students in our class on average, that was a big class. We have peer support, and we had our peers for all of our core teaching. So my peer professional was in there she was amazing. She actually came in extra time on her own, but she was in there from 9 until 2:30. So I was able to teach all of my core, doing small groups. She was in there during my math and during my writing, which really helped to have that extra set of hands to be helping those students, because it is so many students. This year we're down, I have 22 students in my class, which I felt a big difference as a teacher 26 and 22, even though it's only 4 students, it makes a huge difference in being aware of where all my students are and how I can help them, and I can help them more individually because I have that extra time. Can you repeat the second part of your question? And special needs students. So we also have push-in services with our special needs students. So their special education teacher pushes into the classroom. They're also pulled out, and some students also receive one-on-one peer support for those students as well.
My question is around Reading Corps, and when you think about the growth and what you've achieved, you know, there's all these different learning domains for children. Okay, so there's the literacy that we want to work on, and then there's math skills. But have you figured out what actually is reaching your success? Because if you look at the research by Bruce Perry and Philip Zalazzo at the U, it's all the executive function they're talking about. So is it building the relationships one-on-one? Is it helping children to focus and trust? Or how do you look at all the other aspects? Because, you know, we have children in classrooms, they come from such trauma that they're jumping up and down on the desks and shoving Kleenex in their mouths. So just reading to them isn't enough. So do you evaluate those other pieces and why it is effective?
Well, I can speak directly to the pre-K program on that one. I think the short answer to the question in general and specific to Reading Corps as well is you need a both and or an all, whatever you're referring to. But in Reading Corps, the way that we operationalize that both and is that we have those explicit systematic academic activities and tools that the Reading Corps tutor uses, but integrated into that is a program we call the SEEDS program, the Seeds of Early Literacy, and some of you, if you're deep into the pre-K world, you may know the name Kate Horst. She's the developer of that, and that's very much about the emotional and the relational sides of learning, particularly for pre-K. So there's the training sequence that includes 7 specific training modules for the pre-K tutor, includes specific intentional action and then coaching as follow-up for the emotional side as well, the social emotional side.